And good evening and welcome to this edition of the Scanner Guys. I'm Jonathan Higgins and we're live from our studios in Cincinnati, Ohio. So we've got an interesting topic tonight. We're talking about NMO mounts for your police scanner. So we're going to talk about the various ones that are available and some tips when using them. So if you're watching it for the very first time, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Do that now. Ring the bell for notifications, and as always, you can always post questions during the broadcast in the live chat. If they're pertinent to what we're talking about right at the moment, I'll be able to answer that. Try to answer that during the broadcast, during the slideshow presentation. If not, I'll answer it towards the end of the broadcast. So welcome to this edition of the Scanner Guys. Let's dive right into the slideshow, shall we? All right, so let's take a look at some NMO mounts tonight. So I want to remind you of a couple of things. Oops, as I hit the wrong thing. Make sure you follow, like, and subscribe to our social media, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram, or Twitter is otherwise known as X now, at The Scanner Guys. Make sure you visit the website, thescannerguyshow.com. You can shop the store. We do have some swag that you can purchase, which helps to support the channel. And we also have a blog. So we're starting to post some blog entries. Well, I am starting to post some blog entries. So definitely check that out in the store as well. So Train Aficionado Live will be back on Wednesday, August the 7th, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific. Next week, I will actually be off for good reason. I will be at an event for Train Aficionado, Sugar Shack by the Tracks. It's a rail fan meetup in Laughlin, Ohio. It's an ice cream place, and it's right by the railroad tracks. So we'll be able to do some rail fanning on a Wednesday night on the Train Aficionado Buckeye Bluegrass Express 2024 tour. So definitely stop by if you're from the Cincinnati, Ohio area. It'll be Wednesday, July the 31st from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. And it's recommended that you park in the street because parking is limited at the ice cream place. So definitely check that out. So let's take a look at some NMO mounts. So some of these you're probably very familiar with, and some of these are like, I didn't even know they existed. So let's take a look at some options here. So the very common one that most people go to is an NMO mount. This is a mag mount that you would put on your vehicle. So typically it comes in a 3-inch or a 5-inch magnet. The thing with mag mounts you got to be careful of is, of course, taking it on and off the car. You don't want to ever drag it across the vehicle. It will scratch the paint. The other thing to keep in mind if you're using a mag mount, and they typically in a part of a country where it gets a lot of snow and they use a lot of salt on the roads, a lot of times that salt will seep in to the base of the mag mount and it will get to the coax cable and the connector to the NMO. So with mag mounts, it's strongly recommended that you replace it every so often. And when you do use a mag mount, every so often check to make sure that plastic seal or sticker seal that's on the bottom, make sure there's no breaks into it either. I mean, water will seep in there, it'll cause issues, and of course the salt from the roads, if you're in an area where they deal with a lot of snow and they salt the roads heavy, that's also going to get in there and create some issues. So the NMO mount, mag mount that is, you want to be very careful. One, putting it on and off the vehicle, not to scratch it. Two, you want to make sure that you replace it every so often. So this is not typically something that I would say to do permanently. This is great for a temporary setup. So definitely keep that in mind with NMO mounts. Mirror mounts are something that a lot of big rig truckers use, and this typically will be mounted onto their side mirrors because it's got a pipe. So basically it has this plate which you use the bolts there, expand it out, put it through, and then tighten it up on there, and then the antenna screws right on top of that NMO mount. Same thing with this. You want to be careful of it, and you want to keep an eye on it. You see there that the connection is basically, yet again, exposed to the weather. It's on the outside of the vehicle. You want to pay attention to the coax cable. Make sure there's no weathering on there. Nothing's causing any issues with the connection in between the bottom of that plate and the NMO mount. So be checking on that. Make sure that everything is up in the up and up with that. But this is typically something that would be used for truckers on the roads. You know, they'll use an NMO mount to be able to mount an antenna on their rig. And this is definitely a great option. Some people have actually used this for different applications, maybe on the outside of their home, if they've got some sort of balcony with a railing, and the railing will line up as to that plate there. You may be able to do some mounting with that. There's a lot of great things that you can kind of do with this. But yeah, typically it's used for truckers, and it basically will go on their side mirrors on the piping there. The trunk lip mount. So this here, getting a little bit better. You know, you've got, you know, mostly everything shielded. This will mount on a trunk lip. So typically this will be on a sedan. You would slide this over the lip, and then you would tighten it. Typically comes with an L wrench, and you tighten down the two little things there, and then it'll stay secure. The coax cable will just loop right in and be pretty well protected. So this is something that I would say is probably, you know, a better option if you're running a sedan type of vehicle where you can actually use a trunk lip mount. You want to be able to look at the location that you're going to be putting it in and make sure everything is going to be able to fit. The other thing to keep in mind, well, like all the other mounts, you know, make sure you keep an eye on the coax cable and the connectors. Make sure everything is looking in great condition. You'll have some of that coax out in the weather. Make sure it's not getting pinched or any weathering on the rubber on that coax cable. So the trunk lip mount is another great option. This is the ultimate best way to be able to put an antenna on your vehicle, but this involves drilling a hole. I've never done it. I've had somebody else do it. When I have done it, friends of mine basically will call up two-way radio shops, you know, that basically install two-way radios. A lot of times they'll do it for you, and they'll charge a small fee. This is great because the only thing that's out in the weather is the NMO mount. Everything else is in the vehicle. So you want to, you know, this is going to be the ultimate, you know, being able to put this in. Everything is protected by the inside of the vehicle. Why I say to get a professional to do this if you're not familiar with it. One, you're drilling a hole in your car. Two, you want to make sure it's done properly. You don't want to have an issue where if this is not put in properly and then you end up having a leak in your vehicle every time it rains or snows. This typically connection will pretty much last a lot longer than all the other ones because, you know, everything else is pretty much protected inside the vehicle. So this is basically the professional option when it comes to putting in a antenna. I would strongly recommend doing that. Some antennas to mention, of course, the COM telco. The low profile mobile antenna is one that I've used, 17 inches tall. Works as a wideband antenna, a VHF, UHF, 8, 9, and 700 megahertz works really well. On the low band, it works okay. It's not going to be perfect because it doesn't have a tall whip, but it still works pretty well in the low band. I was using this antenna for quite a while, and I was monitoring some stuff back in Massachusetts on the low band, and I had pretty good luck with it, even though that, you know, a lot of the write-ups will say this antenna is not low band friendly, but it seems to work pretty well. And this typically what you would see on police cars and fire trucks that also have scanners in the vehicle. Typically this is the go-to antenna because it's 17 inches tall. It's not a high-profile antenna. Anytime that you're using an NMO mount, especially a hole mount, and you're going to the car wash, make sure you remove your antenna if you're going to one of those car washes where it's not touchless. Typically I go to the self-serve car wash and use the brush and the hose in there, but I typically don't go through the automated car wash where it has all the brushes and everything. You want to make sure that you take this antenna off. The other thing that you want to make aware of, if you go in to get your car serviced at a garage, make sure you let them know that you do have some antennas on the roof, especially if it's a high-profile vehicle such as a pickup truck. I went to get my oil changed one time, and the gentleman got overzealous with the lift and basically broke my antenna. So I had to replace my antenna on my truck. I believe it was one of these NMO mounts, and of course he broke it. Going too high with the lift. Now, I've been there a bunch of times, and they never did that. So that was the first time that ever happened. So make sure if you're bringing in your car for an oil change or any other type of service where it's going to go on a lift, let them know that, you know, you do have antennas on the vehicle. If in doubt, you know, take your NMO antennas off while it's in there for service and then put them back on after. Another antenna that I've used recently, and I've used this on this house here that I'm renting, is this Comet CA2X4 SR mobile antenna. This is a VHF UHF vertical antenna. Works really well on those bands. Also works pretty well on the 7 and 800 megahertz, and pretty well on the low band as well if you've got anything to monitor there. This antenna is quite tall. It's about 48 inches tall. Yes, I'm using this at the house. Somebody mentioned about using a satellite dish as an antenna. That's probably not going to be your best bet. What I've done is there was a mount on the roof. I basically side mounted this antenna. I made it into a NMO with ground plane, so it converted a mobile antenna to a base antenna. And this antenna works extremely well for me. I side mounted it using a pole on the side of that, and I really appreciate, you know, this antenna works really well. It is tall, so if you're going to be using this in the vehicle, keep that in mind if you're going into parking garages and things like that where it's low and you're running like a high-profile vehicle. You probably want to take the antenna off, just because you don't want to rip break the antenna or rip the roof off, because you remember if you're using an NMO mount, it's going to bend and then eventually tear your roof. So you want to be extra careful anytime that you're using a mobile antenna on your vehicle. And those were basically the common NMO mounts, you know, for police scanner antennas. Now, I showed you a couple of antennas. There's a bunch out there. Let's open this up to a little bit more of discussion here. So there's a whole bunch of antennas. Single band antennas. There's other wideband antennas out there. I just gave you a little bit of a sampling. So there's a lot of things out there. The NMO mount antennas are certainly great because, you know, it's two parts. Basically, you have the antenna of itself and then the the mounting gear. So you can be able to pick the mounting gear that you need and then use it for that particular antenna. So there's lots of options for antennas, and there's several different options for mounting gear. So you're basically finding the mount that you need. Somebody mentioned about having an antenna in the apartment. Great thing that I've done in the past is I had an air conditioner unit on the outside of the window. So what I ended up doing is running a coax cable out the window, used a mag mount, sat the mag mount antenna on the air conditioner. Of course, you know, the air conditioner is metal, so it's not going to move. And then, of course, you know, put out my favorite NMO antenna. And then I've got an antenna on the outside of my apartment. I've also used the Spectrum Force wideband antenna with a mag mount, and that works really well. That antenna is about $22 from Scanner Master. That's another great antenna. The coax cable is relatively thin, so it's easy to snake out the window without having any issues. But yeah, a lot of times apartment living, you can get it can be a little bit interesting. If you're not able to put an antenna outside your window, the other suggestion is putting an antenna by your window. You know, maybe using a cookie tin and sitting the antenna on that, giving it a nice ground plane. Anytime they're able to put a scanner antenna by a window, that's helping you to get better reception. You think of, you've got walls in your house, you've got other neighbors, buildings, hills, a whole bunch of stuff. That signal has to go from wherever it originates from all the way to you. So you're actually eliminating one layer of it for it to go through. In this case, a wall. So if you're able to put an antenna here by the window, that's going to help you to get better reception. But definitely keep that in mind when you're basically doing any type of thing like that. Let's take a look. I just want to see if there's any other questions that I missed. I know the apartment one was there. All right, so Jim's asking, are there any updates for the Uniden scanners worth doing? Firmware updates are always great. Typically in the Uniden website, it'll sometimes outline what the update is and what it does. A lot of times updates are very good to do, so I would recommend doing those updates when necessary. You can do it on the SDSs, the 436, 536, the Home Patrol 1 and Home Patrol 2 with the Sentinel software. If you own other radios such as the new 160 and 260 DN or the 996 and the 325P2, those radios you would need the firmware uploader. So I would strongly recommend, doing those updates. Keep in mind, if you're using a portable radio, make sure you leave the scanner plugged in while the upload is being done. So typically with all these radios, what ends up happening is it comes off the computer and then it goes into the radio into a temporary spot, and then once the radio reboots, it will update the firmware. Now what you want to do is make sure it fully loads that update. If you interrupt that update by killing the power or doing something like that, you interrupt it, you could brick the radio. So definitely take your time when doing a firmware update. You want to make sure that it has power to be able to continue to do the update. The updates typically only take about 30 seconds or less. It's not super long, but definitely make sure that you don't interrupt it, because interrupting it could cause some issues with the radio. It could brick it very well. Let's see here. So Jason's asking about his SDS. When he's charging, he notices that the red light goes out when I have it plugged into the power cable to charge. Is that normal? I haven't powered and charged my batteries inside my SDS in quite a while. That may be something Joe will be able to answer. Typically, I use the external. I have the external charger for my SDS. So typically, I don't charge it inside the radio. I use the external charger. So if anything happens to the batteries while charging, it's not going to kill my radio. It's basically going to, I'd rather replace a $80 charger versus a $700+ radio, if there's an issue. So that might be something Joe will be able to answer. Unfortunately, I use the external charger that Uniden carries for the SDS 100. So typically, I drop that battery in and wait for it to charge. The light goes out, and then I can pull that battery and then use it in the radio. Mel mentions that he uses a 7-foot skip shooter antenna on his SDS 200. I'm not familiar with that, but if you're having really good luck with that, that's perfect. Another report, the SDS updates made some earth-shattering improvements to their audio and sound quality. Well, that's great. The waterfall feature, Jim, I'm working on that. Hopefully by a show in August, I'm hoping to be able to do something on that. The waterfall feature, that should be fun to be able to do that show. Belfang radios or Bullfang radios. Yeah, if you put it by the window, that's going to help. If you're going to do an external antenna, you need to pay attention to the mount on there. Typically, it has an SMA male jack on the antenna, so it's the opposite of the scanners. So you may require an adapter to be able to do so. Typically, I'm using, scanners for the most part when I'm using it at the house. So, but yeah, for one of those radios, you may need to get an adapter in order to be able to do that. You may want to be cautious with that. Keep in mind, with a lot of those radios, the pin is on the radio with the male SMA, and that's a sensitive jack. So if you break the pin on there, the radio's essentially no good until you replace the jack. So you want to be cautious with those radios, especially those Chinese radios, especially the Bullfang or Baofeng or whatever it's called, to be cautious when switching out antennas. Joe does the same thing as I do. He mentioned in the comments, for those of you watching the broadcast, he states that the LED light should go from red to green when it's done charging. So anything like a typical charger, you've got your batteries that you charge for your leaf blower or a weed whacker. Typically it has a red light and then switches from red to green when it's charged. So same type of concept there. Let's see here. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people that find that the stock antenna works just fine on these radios, especially depending on what you're monitoring. I mean, a lot of times, the stock antenna will work pretty well. I use my portable scanner a lot for listening to the railroads. Matter of fact, I got a package of the Smiley antenna that I use for the railroads here. This is an extra one that I purchased a month or two ago. So I have this antenna. It's still in the package. But, yeah, this is one that I use for my portable that I use for listening to railroads. My portable now that I use primarily for listening to the railroads is the Uniden Bearcat BCD 160DN, which I use that quite a bit. Paul mentions in the chat, he says, drilling a hole in a car for an NMO antenna can be scary. I suggest finding a local shop to be able to have them put the antenna in. A lot of times a local police and fire department will have a local shop do all their two-way radio stuff. A lot of times, you know, it's easy money for them, and this is an easy install compared to what they're normally doing. Oh, you want me to put a hole for an NMO mount, run the cable to where the scanner is? It's a piece of cake for them, and typically they have all the bits and what have you to be able to do that. So definitely two-way radio shop. If you're nervous about doing it, have a professional do it. Of course, you know, they can stand by their service. The other thing too, with you doing it, you only got one try with drilling it correctly. So if you don't do it right the first time, you're going to run into some issues there. So definitely be cautious if you are doing that on your own. Updates are always coming out for the SDS's 100, 200 as Uniden works on various things. Firmware updates are available when they are available. Typically, some of the firmware updates will improve on the radio's reception or digital decoding, or fix minor bugs, or even add additional features. So, you know, firmware is definitely a great thing to update. You know, check it through the Sentinel software if you're an SDS owner. It's super simple to do right in the software. You can do it on the SDS 100 or 200. Same thing with the 436 and 536. Recently, I just did something with one of my radios, actually the one in my truck, and I updated the firmware on that. I have a 536 in there. So definitely firmware is definitely something you should be checking into. So on the Smiley antenna, they're getting a free plug, which they're not a sponsor of the show, but hold on. I'm going to show you something here. Bear with me. We're doing this during a live show. I'll make sure I didn't. There's a little rubber gasket there. Okay. So let me go full camera so you can see here. All right. So this is the Smiley antenna. I have on there the SMA connector, which does work with the SDS 100. So this is great if you're going to be, you know, using this antenna on your SDS 100. It screws right into the SMA connector. So the cool thing about Smiley antennas is you decide which connector you're going to be using. In this case, I decided I wanted the SMA connector. This is the SMA male connector. So you see how I was able to unscrew that? So I actually ordered an extra connector, and this is the BNC male connector, as you can see here, and it simply just screws right on. So I just take this, screw this right on like this, and now I've made this antenna a BNC antenna versus being an SMA antenna. So if I wanted to share this antenna amongst a couple radios, one's got a BNC, the other one's got an SMA, I can do that. So the SMAs, you know, of course, the threaded connection. The BNC is the traditional twist and lock type of connection. So yeah, I mean, I ordered this antenna from Smiley. So I ordered this, and then I ordered it, of course, as you saw just moments ago, I ordered it with the SMA connector, which you see here, and then I ordered a BNC one. So I can use this on my SDS 100 or on a 125 AT or any other radio that I want to use it on. Their packaging is great. So what they did is they put the connectors, which you can buy for relatively cheap. So you can buy the connector and the antenna. And then of course, I'll just put this back in there. But yeah, the Smiley antenna for the railroads works great. It's tuned to the 160 megahertz. Chris Schultz, that's watching the broadcast tonight, I believe he's got one or two of these antennas. He's also got the one for the aviation, I believe, and he says that works really, really well. So Smiley, they just recently updated their website, so I'm hoping to see more great new products from Smiley. They've really put together some really nice antennas. I can't say enough about them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through a couple of slides, and then we'll answer any remaining questions, and we'll wrap up the broadcast for tonight. So let me go back to the slide deck. So, of course, tonight we were getting to know NMO mounts for police scanner antennas. Keep doing that tonight, hitting the little three little dots of the menu. So the scanner guys are brought to you by viewers like you. What do I mean by that? Viewers like you, purchasing, swag from our store at thescannerguyshow.com, from watching our videos, watching those little ads that may be within the videos, certainly help us. And also, within our videos, we actually have an affiliate link in the description. So if you're looking to purchase anything from Scanner Master, use that affiliate link, order your goods online, and then we'll get a little percentage of the sale. So we greatly appreciate that as well. So go to Scanner Master, use Scanner Master's affiliate link in the video description. It's in every single video for the scanner guys. So you don't have to go back to this video. You can pick any one of them. You'll see the affiliate link there. Click on that, brings you right to the website. Do your shopping, go to checkout, and that's it. It's as easy as that. Make sure you follow, like, and subscribe to our social media as well. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram at The Scanner Guys. And as always, check the website, thescannerguyshow.com. Shop our swag store. We also have a brand new updated website where we're including blog entries as well. So be on the lookout for that. We've got about 3 blog entries there. We hope to add some more blog entries soon. So some additional content on our website for you to peruse. So make sure you go to thescannerguyshow.com, bookmark that site, and check frequently. Train Aficionado is going to be out and about. That's me on Wednesday, July the 31st from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. I'll be at the Sugar Shack by the Tracks in Laughlin, Ohio for one of our rail fan meetups for the Buckeye Bluegrass 2024 tour. So definitely come out and say hello, even if you're a scanner enthusiast. We'd love to be able to meet you, pick up some ice cream, and go from there. So definitely come out to the Sugar Shack by the Tracks for a rail fan meetup on July the 31st, 6 to 9. And Train Aficionado will be next the following Wednesday, which will be Wednesday, August the 7th, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific. So on YouTube. So if you haven't subscribed to that channel as of yet, make sure you do that now. And check out our video that we have over there, setting up your scanner for the railroads. This is highlighting the 160 and 260 DN, the latest and greatest on the Uniden scanner product line. So definitely check that out. So there was tonight's topic of discussion, was the NMO mounts there. So let's take a look at some questions that have came in. Looks like there's back and forth here. Let's see. So typically an antenna, there's a male and female when it comes to connectors on a scanner. Typically the one with the pin is a male, and the one that receives the pin is the female connector. So typically when using a scanner, typically on your SDS100, for example, it's going to have on the scanner itself, it's going to have a female connector. So that means with your antenna, you need to make sure it has an SMA male connector, which has the pin that goes into the female connector. So that's typically how it rolls. Typically one end of the connection is a male and the other connection is the female. Yes, also be careful. Jason mentions, don't use heavy antennas on the SDS100 because it also could break the connection inside the scanner. All the antennas that I've used are this is super lightweight. So using this antenna, it is taller than the stock antenna that's on the scanner, but it's extremely lightweight. You want to keep that in mind too. There's a blog entry talking about SMA connectors, especially with something like the SDS100. You want to probably use, if you're going to use the SMA to BNC adapter, you want to use the manufactured one that came with the scanner because it has a weighted base. Typically those third-party adapters, the connector is pretty flimsy and could essentially, if the radio gets hit the wrong way or drops, could break the actual connector on the scanner. So be cautious with your scanner. The other pet peeve that I've noticed what people do all the time with their two-way radios and scanners is carrying it by the antenna. Don't do that. Think of, that connection, you carrying it by the antenna is not good for that connection inside the radio at all. Make sure you're carrying it by the actual body of the radio. So that's one of my pet peeves. I see people do that all the time. Just drives me bonkers. And then they wonder why, Jesus, this thing doesn't have that great reception. Well, you're carrying it by the antenna. You're carrying it by the weakest point on the radio. You should be carrying it by the base of the radio, not by the antenna. Do I have any experience with the Spectrum Force wideband antenna with mag mount? Yes. I've used it on my truck. It's currently the one that's on my truck right now. Works really well. Works well as an application by a window. Sitting on the windowsill on the outside of this window. I've done that before. It works really well in the vehicle. For $22, it's a really good antenna. It works extremely well. The coax cable is thin, so just be careful not to pinch it. But, it's certainly a rugged little antenna, and it's able to handle speeds on your vehicle. I've gone on roads where it's 75, 80 miles an hour is this posted speed limit. Never had an issue with it coming off. It stays right on to the vehicle. It's a really great antenna. I can't say enough about it. Lots of great comments about, the SDS 200. Picking up sites 40 miles away, 1 bar, perfect audio. Just really a great scanner. Mel's new to the hobby. Well, welcome to the hobby. There's tons of videos on the YouTube channel. If you got any topic that you want to do some research on, certainly you can watch a lot of our older shows. Someone's asking about housekeeping issues on the SDS. I'm not too sure what that comment is meant to. Jim is thanking us for a great show once again. Yeah, there's a lot of mobile antennas out there, for the NMO mounts. Somebody's asking about, typically most rubber duck antennas are going to be good for the SDS 100. Just keep in mind, you probably want to stay away from those tall telescoping antennas that typically weigh a little bit more. That can cause some issues. Typically, rubber ducks work great on the SDS. You want something that's lightweight. Yeah, avoid stacking adapters. Jason mentions that, you want to avoid adapters as much as possible. If an antenna only comes in a B and C version, use the manufactured SMA to B and C adapter. It has a weighted base, so it's going to be more snug on that SMA connector. The other thing too, when you're putting on an SMA connector, don't over tighten. Just tighten it until it stops. You don't need to do the extra turn on it, because you could bust the connection. So it just needs to be on there just enough. Doesn't need to be over tightened. Tennis systems. I'm not familiar what you're asking about. That's tennis systems do the police use on their cars? Not too sure what you mean by tennis systems. That's a little... I have no idea what that is. But yes, police do use scanners on their vehicles. Back in the day, the Massachusetts State Police would use 15Xs. They probably moved to 996P2s, like if they do have a scanner in the vehicle. I remember the California Highway Patrol, back in the day when GRE was manufacturing scanners, they bought a whole slew of the GRE PSR 600s for their vehicles. So there's a lot of... So if you're mentioning tennis systems, if you're mentioning antennas, typically it'll be that antenna that I showed you for a police car. Typically they go with the Comtoco low-profile antenna, which is this one here. I know the Mass State Police, when they do put a scanner in the vehicle, they'll go with something that looks like this. It's a Comtoco low-profile mobile antenna. Works really well on UHF, VHF, 8 and 900 and 700 megahertz. So typically it'll be something that'll look like this. A lot of times that's what police and fire departments use when they add a scanner to the vehicle. Something that's, sufficient. It's low profile. I mean, this antenna is 17 inches in height. That's the equivalent of the Spectrum Force wideband antenna with the mag mount. So it's the same height. Works pretty equal. Pretty well. But yeah, typically police and fire departments are using this type of antenna here. Yeah, a lot of people do like that the SDS does have the ability to be watertight. Certainly you can't throw it in a pool or anything, but if you're out there in a little bit of rain, it'll keep the scanner from getting wet internally. So all very good things there. All right, I think I've answered all the questions that have came through. Thank you so much, everyone. That's yes, the Scanner Master does sell the Comtoco antenna. I believe at the time of this broadcast, it is out of stock right now. So hopefully they'll be getting some more in. I'm not too sure if they're still dealing with some supply chain issues there. With certain products, but yeah, the Comtoco is one of the products that Scanner Master sells. It's actually under antennas and mobile antenna favorites. You'll be able to see it under there. I believe at the time of this broadcast it is out of stock. Hopefully they'll be getting some more in soon. Joseph, sorry to hear about all your local law enforcement agencies in your area are encrypted since 2016. I mean, that's why there's a lot of other things to monitor on the scanner, such as railroads, aviation, businesses. There may be some other types of things to monitor there. But yeah, I mean, certainly, there's going to be areas that are like that in the country. All right. Well, I thank you all for watching tonight's broadcast. I'm Jonathan Higgins, live from our Cincinnati studios. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel by doing that right now. Make sure you check out Train Aficionado. We're trying to reach 2,000 subscribers over there. So go over there and subscribe to our channel as well. And we've got some great content coming up in the next couple of months on both channels. So definitely subscribe, and we hope that you visit us again and watch us live when you can. So thank you so much for watching tonight's broadcast, where we talked about getting to know NMO mounts for your police scanner antennas. So hopefully you learned a little bit, and we've talked about firmware and a whole bunch of other things that came up in conversation. So thank you so much for watching tonight's broadcast. We appreciate every one of you. And Joseph says he is listening to other things. That is awesome. Yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff out there to monitor on your scanner. So definitely do that. Thank you, Joe, for answering some of those questions. I hope I got to everybody's question that needed an answer. I do apologize if I missed anybody. Unfortunately, this show is just me. So I have to, do the broadcast and look at the live chat at the same time, plus running everything else. So I appreciate all of you from doing, for participating. And those of you that are watching after the broadcast, I appreciate you as well. So thank you so much. Have a great night. We will catch you again, not next week, but the following week for Train Aficionado. And then we've got episodes of the Scanner Guys coming up in August. So keep it right here. Have a great night. We'll talk to you soon.